Okay, now I have chopped and peeled my green chilies and they are ready to be put into the jar. I'm going to loosely pack them. You want to use your canning funnel so that you can loosely pack these in the jar and not get product all around the edges. So we're going to do that. And the headspace for this is going to be 1 inch. So whenever I pack these in, I will loosely pack them and then I will pour in my boiling distilled water for the rest of it. So that's pretty loosely packed in there. Tap that. So with our product in our jar, we're now ready to add our boiling distilled water. And we know that we're going to add it to the bottom thread because that is 1 inch and that's what's required for this. So I'm going to check that, get down at eye level and make sure, and I actually have just a tad bit too much, so I'm going to take a little bit out. Once you get your product in and you get your headspace correct with your distilled water, you want to use something that's plastic or rubber that won't nick your jar, and just go around the edge, and this gets your bubbles free to make sure that you don't have any bubbles in your product. And just go around your jar gently, make sure that all the bubbles are coming to the top so that everything processes correctly. Now I'm going to get my paper towel and dampen it and just go over and make sure that there is no product around this edge so that we get a nice good seal. Just go around it like that. So then you take your magnetic wand, get your lid in here, and put it on your jar. Just like that. You set it on there. Okay, now we have our sanitized lid, or ring, sorry, and we're going to do it, we're going to turn it and do it to just fingertip tight, not screw it on hard, just fingertip tight. And now it's ready to go in the canner. You have probably seen many roasters and chilies throughout New Mexico in the fall. Be sure that if you have your chilies roasted that they are put in a food safe bag, not in a regular garbage bag with scent in it, and they are cooled down within 2 hours. I'm going to show you the different kinds of high pressure canners available. Some are just the weighted gauge, and they come like this, and they have 5, 10, and 15 pounds of pressure. They don't have the dial gauge on them. They're the older kind, and they just have this. And say if your recipe calls for 14 pounds of pressure, you would round it up to 15 and put that over your vent pipe. Some also have what they call a petcock, which is the valve, and it folds down or comes up. This is the kind that has a dial gauge, and this is actually more accurate and is preferred in high altitudes above 5,000 feet. Before you start canning, always check your altitude and be sure you look at the chart to tell how many pounds of pressure you should have for your canner. The preferred kind now is the metal on metal rim, like this one. This is metal and the lid is metal. And these are Bakelite knobs, and this is the preferred kind. This kind is just fine, but you have to check the rubber gasket. Make sure it's not brittle, and make sure it's in the right grooves, and that it is pliable and still good. And you can replace these. You can get them online or at your local hardware store. You just need to know the number of your pressure canner. And we at the extension office can test your pressure gauge to make sure it's calibrated correctly. And if it's not, you don't have to send your home your whole canner in, you just take this off and send it in to the manufacturer. There are different kind of racks inside the pressure canners. And this is one kind of rack. You always need something on the bottom to keep your jars from being directly on the bottom of the pan and jostling so that they won't crack and break. So this is one kind. This kind in particular has this kind of rack. And either rack is fine. If you decide to stack this kind, because this can have a stackable jars and you can process a bunch at the same time, you need this in between them so that they don't jostle and break. Now we're going to add the water. You go by your recipe, but usually it's 2 or 3 inches into the bottom of your canner. And you want to be sure and measure that it's accurate. When you have a large canner like I do, sometimes it's too hard to move it once the water's in because it's so heavy. So I just add the water here at the stove. And again, we're going to use our glug of vinegar so that we don't have hard water residue on our jars. So I'm just going to add a glug. When you are adding your jars to the canner or taking them out with your jar lifter, never tilt the jars. This can cause problems in your canning. Just think up, over, and down, and that's the movement that you should use whenever you're putting in or taking out your food. Now I'm taking just a little bit of vegetable oil and putting it on a paper towel, and I will wrap this around the rim of the canner because you get a better seal. Here you always tighten the Bake-A-Lot knob across from each other, directly opposites, and you do them at the same time. So I will screw both of them at the same time, opposite of each other, and then after I'm done, I look and make sure that the lid is level all the way around. Now looking at my dial gauge, I will start timing because it's at the right appropriate pressure. You don't start timing until it's at pressure. Be patient. Processing time starts when there is a continuous stream of steam, not just sputtering. The altitude determines the time it takes to get a steady stream. If during the process the pressure within the canner falls below the recommended pressure, then the timing must start all over once the recommended pressure value is reached. The dial gauge or wetted gauge must be watched at all times. Regulate heat under the canner to maintain a steady pressure at or slightly above the correct gauge pressure. Quick and large pressure variations during the processing may cause unnecessary liquid losses from jars. Follow the canner manufacturer's directions for how a wetted gauge should indicate it is maintaining the desired pressure. Once processing time is completed, turn the heat off. Allow canner to cool slowly. Do not run cold water over the lid to speed up cooling. Once the dial gauge reads 0, then the canner is depressurized. Remove weight or open petcock, then wait another 10 minutes before unfastening. Carefully remove jars from canner using a jar lifter. Remember to lift the jar up vertically and do not tilt the jar. Place clean jars on clean cloth towels. Allow jars to cool at room temperature for 12 to 24 hours. Do not move the jars while cooling. Testing jar seals. Press the middle of the lid with a finger or thumb. If the lid springs up when you release the finger, the lid is not sealed. Hold the jar at eye level and look across the lid. The lid should be concave. If the center of the lid is either flat or bulging, it may not be sealed. Tap the lid with the bottom of a teaspoon. If it makes a dull sound, the lid is not sealed. If food is in contact with the underside of the lid, it will also cause a dull sound. If the jar is sealed correctly, it will make a ringing, high-pitched sound. After you get your jars out of your canner and they've cooled for at least 24 hours and you've taken the ring off, there will be some residue on the jars, and you want to go ahead and wipe that off so that everything's nice and clean. And then you always want to label and date your jars because you think you'll remember, but you won't. So I'm putting the label on right here, and it says that I didn't add salt, so that I remember that. There we go. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you learned a lot today. If you have questions, my contact information is on the slide. Happy canning!